It's just such a weird open middle space. You know what I mean?
But then in the game, like that makes it not open.
This looks good too, right? Okay, so we put this on the live because like half the people that wanted to come, they couldn't come because obviously the storm and so forth. So you can see this. Drop a comment on I think it's live now, right? People can see it.
I can't.
Let's go to the
Yeah. Yeah. You may want to just step back a little bit.
Sure.
There we go. Now we.
Don't look at what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, man.
But yeah, you'll. Oh yeah, that looks good.
We're going to start in like 5 to 8 minutes. 5 to 8 minutes, I'm just waiting for the last people to come in.
If you guys want drinks, there's also drinks in the fridge. They're not that cold for how cold it is outside, but you know, there's drinks. Make sure before we start, introduce yourself to 2 new people. That's the goal, 2 new people. Diggy, looking at you in the back. The gentleman in the beige sweater, meet Diggy too. JT, I'll meet you.
I just want to keep it lower. Ideally like this. Damn. It's just like a little too big. You get lower? Yep. Beautiful. Okay, there you go. And then get this one. Yep. Okay, there you go. You might need to go back one.
Yeah, we do. Okay. Another option to clear is like sorry, we clear it right over here. So and then it just kind of looks like,
It's a great call.
and then we put the laptop here.
It stays.
Here.
The nose can sit there. It's the issue.
Okay. So then
Just move this over here.
yeah, so but yeah, true. And then
Move that over a bit.
yep. Here we go. Needs to be moved.
It's not far enough back.
Yeah, that's why I want to put it on the here. Here. Blair?
Yep. Doesn't look bad. Can't fully see that.
Unless we move it a little bit more this way. Okay. And then I'll stay here and I'll let's see over here. Ooh.
Guys, we're gonna start in 30. I didn't know it went that loud. We're gonna start in like 30 seconds. If the girls want to come to the front too.
Good, now I get to see
I need camera to be close to me.
The camera source is not the laptop.
What is it? That?
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's a tight spot. This is where I'm claiming to forget film like the content. Okay. Just for like a little bit.
All right. I don't even know if we're doing a microphone. I think it's a good microphone. The Monday Girls are ETA. They're here. They're coming. I think they're stuck in the storm, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are stuck.
They're on the way.
They're stuck in the storm.
Vanessa, you'll have to move. You cannot come in.
Well, first, thank you guys for all coming out. Just quick round of applause. Thank you guys. This was a hell of a turnout. We found out about the store like 2 hours ago. And, you know, part of us was like, we looked at each other and we're like, okay, what the hell do we do? And I think similar to probably what these incredible founders do is you roll up your sleeves and you get shit done. And thank you guys for coming out. I'm super excited. You know, how does it sound? We're talking like this. Yeah, I feel like we went through too much. Anyway, yeah. So no, I appreciate you guys for all coming out. First, I want to do quick intros with the incredible, founders that we have today. They've been super grateful to, spend their evenings with us, especially with how crazy it is outside. So why don't we start? Helen, you want to give a quick intro? Deal with the mic if you want.
Yes,
If the
you
mic
guys
doesn't
tell
work.
me if you guys prefer the mic.
Mike.
Especially for the back. Hi guys, my name is Hyla. I am the co-founder of the activewear brand 437. I'm sure we'll get into it more, but we started around, I think it's 8 years ago now. We were at Queens, and we're not very passionate about the traditional business routes that were offered at business school. And so we were like, let's just start selling some things online, see what happens, make some travel money. And then, 8 years later, we focus on the intersection between feminine, fashion-forward styles meets kind of like the modern, everyday kind of girl at the gym. So we're really specializing in studio wear, less on like the masculine, like lifting athletic wear that you might already see on the market. We're trying to meet the aesthetic that maybe someone who goes to Pilates might enjoy, but she still wants that aesthetic, whatever her workout is. And so, that's what we've been doing. And I'm so excited to also hear from you guys as well today. I love your story.
Likewise, I can't believe we've never been in person before, even though we both went to Queens.
Woo!
2015. You were 2016?
Yes.
Yeah, when you were crazy. Oh, 2017. So very similar story. My name is Connie, co-founder of 3 Ships, but also went to Queens. Also did not want to do the traditional career path of like finance banking. And luckily a mutual friend introduced me to Laura, and we started the skincare brand with initially $4,000 in savings in my apartment kitchen. So roll up the sleeves attitude, Blair. We've definitely done it. We know how to do it. So 3 Ships is an effective natural skincare brand. We really focus on the intersection of science-backed ingredients with truly plant-based ingredients. So a lot of people think that you can either be natural or effective and science-backed, and we're here to show you that it can be both. We have a full product line of 24 products. You can find us in over 1,000 retail locations today. Maybe Laura, you want to talk more about the product side?
Sure, yeah. I was like, Connie's stolen all my lines. It's okay. So I'm Connie's other half. I'm also the co-founder of 3 Ships. Unlike these two, I did not go to business school. I went to U of T for chemical engineering, and also did not want to actually do what I was studying for after I graduated. I found heat exchangers and pump design very boring. So I had this idea for a natural skincare line in my final year of school, met Connie, like she said, through a mutual friend, and her and I just very much clicked. So happy to chat about all things like finding a co-founder if you decide that you want someone. That's, I think, something that's very uniquely female founder centric. A lot of women tend to like to have co-founders. It can be hard to find, so we can chat through that. And then in terms of our products, like Connie said, we have a line of over 20 products currently. Cleansers, serums, masks. My favorite, if you want to check us out online, is our Superfruit mask. It's like a facial in a jar. It's the best thing ever. Highly recommend.
Bravo. My wife loves it, by the way. So yeah, she's a big fan. I'm gonna start off. I have a couple questions. These are all selfish questions that I wanted to ask anyway. So I have a couple questions I want to ask the girls, and then the Monday girls might come by too. And then I also just want to open it up. So probably 15, 20 minutes of some of the questions that I want to ask the girls. The most popular questions we get asked. Beautiful timing. Fashionably late. You would have made me the big screen. I was concerned there for a second. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Hi, guys. Nice to see everyone. Thanks for checking it out. I'm Rachel. I'm one of the co-founders of Monday Girl. This is Eastina, my better half. We hated networking, and that's why we started Monday Girl. We'll talk about it a little bit more later. Hi, everyone. Sorry, that snow was crazy. I was like going 2 kilometers a mile per minute, but yeah, we're excited to share our story. I know there might be some Monday Girls in the audience here. I'm excited to connect, and we're such huge fans of all of you. So thank you for having us.
Of course. So first I want to ask one to Hyla is, so you guys, and I'm curious because the girls here from a retail perspective, Hyla, you guys transitioned, you guys were predominantly e-commerce, and now you guys shifted to, now you're expanding into retail. Talk about the retailers that you're in. What did that shift look like? How did you plan it? What's the complexity of that? It's a big turn, and obviously the 3 Ship girls, I'm curious about your input too.
Yeah, being in wholesale was like one of my and Adrian's biggest goals when we were starting 437. But I think we obviously knew we were in Kingston, Ontario, starting this brand, and so we were one of the strongest. I'm glad we did at the beginning was we're not based in Kingston, Ontario. We're online, right? And we had this mentality of when you're e-commerce, your customers can be anywhere in the world as long as you have a great fulfillment partner. And ultimately, we always kept that in mind because we're like, we're not going to be a Kingston, Ontario brand. We're even not going to just be a Toronto brand or a Canadian brand. We wanted to be a global brand. And so we had that in mind from the beginning, but wholesale was really just something cool, like to be able to walk into a major retailer or to be in Revolve or something like that. That would have been a dream. I have emails that I can go and just show you guys 2020, 2021, 2022, pitching to Revolve, pitching to a lot of places. Hey, I've attached some stuff from our swimwear. Hey, I've attached our new activewear. We just came out. And then I would get rejected time and time again, whether, we like some stuff, there's not enough here, or yeah, you just don't have enough for us to bring you in as a new brand. Finally, I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna allow the universe to do what it needs to do when the time is right. I was on a podcast in New York, and the podcast host was telling me, I just had the director of fashion at Revolve just tell me the other day she wanted activewear brands that they just, it's not doing well, they need some really good stuff. I was like, let me send her a contact, whatever. And next thing you know, she's like, yeah, let's bring you guys on board. And now we're like their top activewear brand. And they sold out within 2 days. And like what goes from like a small order is now Revolve is $1 million part of the business just in of itself. And from one thing, you leverage that to another. So to what you're saying, where we had no idea this would happen, but the minute we got one retailer, any retailer we went to, it was Nordstrom, yes, SoulCycle, Equinox, Onus in the Middle East. It's like their high end in Dubai and stuff. And it's just been leverage power. However, I will say on like a marketing brand co-founder side, I was really excited. I was like honored, but then the operational stuff comes into play. And it's not as pretty as people think it is. First of all, the amount of money you're left with for the brand once you're in wholesale is minimal, especially someone like Revolve, because they'll charge you even fees just because they're like, we know your brand is going to be shown to so many more people. So they're going to take so much margin. So one of the challenges with wholesale is cash flow. Being a bootstrap company, no investors, that has been extremely difficult. We just could not keep the cash flow because now we have to go into production. Let's just say hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're not going to get paid for another 6 months. We needed that money to employees and the production just for our own online. That's been an issue, and now even our operations team is just struggling with the workload of just like, hey, we didn't anticipate all of these retailers now, and it's a big process. Every single retailer needs the shipment to be done a certain way.
It's like a whole compliance.
Yeah. I'm like on the marketing side. I'm like, I don't know what you guys do, but I like every single day I'm just grateful for our operations team and to you guys because it is just so complex. And so honestly, hats off to the fact that you're in over 1,000 retailers. I don't even know how you guys.
And maybe just speak about kind of like how
Yeah,
did you
sure.
guys get to the first one? It
Yeah.
wasn't like a cold email. Hyla, did
Oh
you,
my gosh,
did you
yeah.
have a connection? Like, how did you break into it?
No connections. I wish Revolve was our first retailer, though. That's sick. When Laura and I first started the brand, I just literally walked up and down the streets of downtown Toronto, finding any retailer that I thought would be a fit for 3 Ships. So to backtrack, we always actually started the brand wanting to be an omni-channel brand because within skincare, our hypothesis was that when you're a relatively unknown brand online, what would convince someone to try your product? It's like they need to smell, touch, and feel the product, right? And so partnering with a reputable retailer would be really important. But I knew that to get into some of those retailers as a brand that started with like $4,000, I wouldn't be able to go straight to the big guys. So found a few local retailers, and then in every email that I had outreach with, I would say like, "Am I carried in this retailer?" and like just like mention the little guys. But I remember I learned a lot too because I was so naive when we first started. I remember I went to the Urban Outfitters, which I don't even know if it's still there, like Young and Queen. And I walked in and I was like, "Can I speak to your buyer?" And she was like, "Oh, honey, buying's done in LA, like it's not here." And I was like, "Well, can I get their email?" And then they're like, "No." So you learn from those experiences. And then I think one of our first bigger retailers, which was Whole Foods, we landed by going to a trade show. And this is another example of like how serendipity kind of comes into play. So it was the end of the show. No one was really talking to this one lady that was walking around because, to be honest, she didn't look like she was a buyer. She looked like a consumer walking the floor, and she had her name tag turned around so you couldn't tell who she was. I went up to her and was just like, "La da da, like this is 3 Ships." And then halfway through the conversation, she flipped her like badge, and it was the Whole Foods buyer. And I was like, "Oh," and then I had to pretend that I didn't see that she had done that. And I was just like, just like kept looking at her, making eye contact, when inside I was like melting. So that was the first like big retailer we had.
Amazing.
And I'm just curious, just for raise a hand, how many of you guys own a brand or a business or a founder? And how many want to start a business? Hell yeah, okay. And how many of you guys know about Monday Girl? Or maybe are part of the Monday Girl? Whoa. So maybe that's a good next question. You guys have built the community for female entrepreneurs and women in business. 100,000 now, give or take? Okay, who's counting? 350,000. How do you guys think about growing a community? So if you're a brand that's starting or your business, I think community can be ethos of how to grow. But how do you guys think about approaching community? How did you guys, from where you guys are now versus 350,000? That's incredible.
Yeah, I think when we started Monday Girl, we didn't set out to build a business. We very much started the platform selfishly for ourselves because of a problem that we ourselves were experiencing. But we met like 10 years ago. We were so frustrated by like, how are you meeting like professional women? Like she comes from the world of tech, I come from the world of creative media, and we both were surprised to hear like we had the same issue. Like she didn't see herself represented in the boardroom in the tech spaces, and I was so frustrated by going on to these really boring corporate networking events, very male-dominated spaces, or like it's like LinkedIn, you're sending a million messages, no one gets back to you, and those are your options. And also on the other hand, like we kept seeing all these really cool influencer events, and we obviously didn't get invited, and none of our friends got invited. So we're like, there has to be something there. Like, so we built the platform that we wish we had, and it started off very organic. Like our first event was friends of friends, 50 women. When we realized people from that first event, people left with new job connections. From then we spanned on to hosting like hundreds of events with so many women. It was very organic. It was word of mouth. We didn't even start doing like Facebook or Instagram ads till like maybe 2 years ago. So it very much has always been like just building something for ourselves, and it grew very organically.
I think it's really interesting because we always get asked this, which is fair. We're like a community, like that's our product. But everyone's like, how do you build community? I'm like, it took us 10 years. And it really started, again, selfishly because we were trying to build for ourselves. We really didn't see ourselves represented. And I think it really goes to show that people to this day still say, I'm a part of Monday Girl because it's so authentic. Like I still feel like you guys built it with care. You built it with such intention. And I think it's really hard because all of you guys are think about certain brands. You guys have brands, and obviously everyone's like, build a community. And I'm sure these ladies can tell you it's you have to be authentic, because otherwise people can see right through it, and they're not going to want to go with you for that journey. And if you change your brand, they might be like, bye. So, which we'll have to do because you have to continuously adapt. So I'd say for us, we've been able to have our community come along with us for this crazy journey. Because when we started Monday Girl like 10 years ago, we thought it was sick. We were like, it's like this like lime green. And we're like, this is amazing. And obviously we're very different looking now, but our community gets that, and they've been there with us for the whole ride. So.
Yeah, I think like we've bootstrapped it this far, and just I think with community building, like we've always debated like should we raise money or should we go different routes, but I think with building real relationships and genuine connections, like that care again, like there's a certain pace you have to go. It doesn't work to just like scale at a certain pace. Like people see through that, so yeah, we're really proud of that.
So Hyla, then when you're growing 437 now, you've created a whole movement with the athleisure wear when you're building. Like how do you think about that? Because it's a little bit different, because now you're building, you have the retail product, you have the D2C. Like when when your marketing hat goes on, how do you think about community? Because it might be a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that gets so excited by all different marketing ideas. It's like, oh, do we do a pop-up? Do we do an influencer trip? Do we have someone on our TikTok who's like a fun personality doing silly things at like Duolingo? Like, as a marketer, it's really easy to just want to do it all and get really excited about it. But then oftentimes, and Adrian really helps me in this, and we come together on this, it's just, we have to remember who we are. We have to remember what our vision is. And also, I think in apparel brands, and all brands I'm sure, but the aesthetic of the brand is so important, the persona and the people behind it, but it all has to make sense. It all has to, I don't know, there just has to be in harmony. And you can't, for example, these are the conversations we literally have every single day. We can't have someone running our TikTok channel that's giving off the energy of like an 18-year-old that's like fun, like high school and college, and like, that might attract someone being like, $75 for sports bra? Like what? Like that's, you bring that to a 32-year-old making, 6 figures. That's a pretty reasonable price for a good quality sports bra, right? So you have to be so mindful from every single part of the business. Who are you trying to go after? Who's your base? Who's your community? And there's a difference between, you have to just be, I don't know, I'm always trying to stay humble. It's like, there's a community that we may have spoken to years ago, but it's like, do we want them to continue to grow with us? Because likely they're also kind of getting older with us too, right? So like really clear things like social media, even the designs. This year we had to be like, do we do sweats? Because sometimes we get excited, we're like, let's do sweats, I want to wear it, and we just want to design things we want to wear. But then I'm like, our thing is this, you're going to look so cute and like put together when you're walking into a studio, and nothing feels more like that than wearing a wrap top or like a snatch and curve jacket. And so let's be the leader in the wrap top section. Let's be a leader in like the really cute onesie, rather than trying to have the best sweats. You can go to Aritzia and you can get that. So it's just super important to be dialed in across all channels.
Good point. Good point. So Laura, Connie, so the one thing I want to ask about, and I think a lot of people are going to be curious here, how yours is actually opposite. So I kind of want to see both sides of it. Raising money. I think it's absolute bullshit, the amount of money that gets raised from female-led founders. I think it's less than 2% of all private equity gets raised by female founders, which is why we're doing things like this. But my brain goes in 100 different ways. But I guess, how do you guys think about and make the decision to raise money versus just staying bootstrapped? And then what were those kind of like, action steps that you guys took? Because that's a big decision to make, and you're giving a part of, your baby away. So I wanted to hear your guys' playbook and how you guys thought about it.
Yeah, it was a big decision. I think we looked at the brands that were really successful and ultimately got to where we wanted Three Ships to get to. all of them had raised money. I don't think that there was a single exception that had launched in the last like 5-10 years that hadn't raised money or was created by private equity. And so we were like, okay, this is in very many ways a necessity because growing a brand is really expensive, and especially in beauty where you have to spend all these amounts on these retailers, you have to be in retail and it is expensive. And so for us, it was like, I don't think there was ever really a question that at some point we were going to raise. In terms of timing, I look back on our first fundraise, which we did in 2019, at the end of 2019, and I cringe. Like our initial brand pitch deck is awful, so bad. I'm surprised that we could raise any money on it. We basically did $120,000. We initially went out asking for $1 million, which was way too much. I think that year we had done like $500K in sales. We had no business asking for $1 million. 120K was probably about right. And also, I don't think we would have known how to spend $1 million. And so those were two really big lessons for us. Is one, ask for an amount that you know that you can close on. Like it's far better to be oversubscribed than it is to be like, oh, we're at 20% subscribed. Like, do you want in? Nobody wants in. Investors are very FOMO, emotional driven. They'll tell you that they're not. They make a lot of their decisions with emotions. They really do. They don't want to be the one left out of the cool party or missing out on the next like Uber. And so that's one thing. Set a price tag that you know that you can close on. Have an external resource, build your pitch deck, because as clear as the storytelling and as obvious as your point of differentiation is to you, it's probably not obvious to that person that doesn't eat, sleep, and breathe your brand every single day. So the best $800 in terms of ROI we've ever spent was $800 for this agency to design our pitch deck and make it really nice and clear, cohesive story. And we use that pitch deck because our first one sucked. We used that next one in our second round. We raised 1.4 million in 2 weeks. It was night and day difference. Yeah, night and day difference because we knew that we were not going to design a pitch deck, so we wanted an external resource to tell that story from an investor point of view. And then the third thing is stoke that FOMO. Like set a firm close date, set a minimum check size. Like you have to have those things. And I think us not knowing the lingo early on made us not credible, and people weren't interested from day one. They'll always tell you like, oh, like keep in touch, love what you're building, but it's just too early or too XYZ. And that's a no. That's a hard pass in their language. They just don't want to say that. So like you need to know yourself up front, to know your close date, minimum check size. We set a really firm close date of like 2 weeks out. We wanted it to be really, really aggressive. And we front loaded that 2 weeks with the calls that we knew that we would close in the beginning because we've been nurturing those investors. And so it was basically like within the first 24 hours, we were already 25% subscribed. And that creates that artificial FOMO and those timelines and that drive for other investors that we're already like reaching out to want to get on the phone call with us. Creates this like sense of urgency for other people to write checks and cut them really fast. And then now we've raised a total of over $6 million across 4 rounds. And we did our first 3 rounds as safes. So that's the final piece of advice I would have as well, is do safes. Do not do price rounds. They're so expensive from a legal point of view. I think our last round, we spent like $70,000 on legal to close the $3.5 million round. It's very expensive, and that's because it was a price round. Safes, you can close with maybe $1,000 in legal costs. It's night and day difference. Simple agreement for future equity, I think is what it stands for. It was created by one of the big VCs out in San Francisco. Y Combinator. To make it easy for founders to raise money quickly. So it's a very easy document, and it also defers your valuation into the future. So, and there's some benefits for the investors to de-risk them as well. But that's how I'd recommend that you raise your money off of. And if anyone tells you otherwise, like, please do not take that advice. It's bad advice.
How would you find your first 3 investors? Like, you have to go back and raise 100,000. You have to raise it in the next month, or else the brand is not going to happen. What would you guys do, and who would you reach out to, and how?
Find your highest net worth individuals that you know could be friends of your parents, and ask them to introduce you to 3 people that might be interested. And each of those 3 people are probably going to say no, but ask them, even if they say no, do you know some people that might be interested that we can talk to? Investors love introducing people to other people, but you have to ask. And so like Connie and I had 0 investor connections before going into this, like not a single person. And so our entire mailing list of investors, which is now over 120 people that we've been like kind of networking with and like keeping warm, and we keep them warm throughout different rounds so we can go back to them, which is another big thing of building out a database. We didn't know any of them. They were all intros from other investors that had turned us down. Yeah.
Great question.
I'll try to add on. I mean, that was great. Some other things also is just to know that fundraising is a full-time job, even when you have co-founders. So for that 2-week round that Laura mentioned, we blocked off our calendars, including our evenings, so like no social plans, so nothing. Laura slept over at my house. And then just from like 8 a.m. until whenever the last call would go until, we just be on calls. And something that we learned from the round before that Laura was talking about is it takes several calls to close an investor. And so the problem that we had the first time is we didn't block off time in our calendar. So when someone would ask for a follow-up call, we'd be like, oh, okay, well, like I'm free like in 2 weeks, and like Laura's free next week, so 3 weeks from now. And then by then, you gotta start when the iron's hot. So that's something I'd recommend. Then like Laura also said the database. So even when investors had said no to us in that first round, we sent them emails monthly via Klaviyo. And it was just like little updates like this is what we did last month, this is what we're focused on for the next 4 weeks. And we also have a section on the top that says where we can use help, because even if they don't want to give money, they might be willing to help you. And then what we did when we raised our next round is we looked into that mailing list and we looked at our past emails that were sent. And the ones that had opened the emails the most were the first ones we reached out to, because we could tell that they were warm. So that was really helpful too. So yeah, those would be our biggest piece of advice, but it's been a journey. So if you want to find us later and talk about it, we're happy to.
They gotta pass all the way down. Yeah.
Girls, from a growth perspective, what's working in 2025 for you guys? Like, obviously everyone's focused on like, how do you grow your brand? How do you grow your business? Is it, and how do I want to ask you after too, like, is it personal brand? Is it ads? Is it just doing more activations in the community of what you're doing? Like, how are you guys thinking about growth this year? Where are you guys putting money?
I can take a first stab at this. Just want to make sure everyone's familiar with what we do at Monday Girl. I can quickly just give the TLDR here, but essentially we reimagined networking for the professional woman. So as Isiana mentioned, we walked into stuffy rooms, didn't see ourselves represented, felt like we had to choose between like really hot pink 4-woman events or just like really gray blue like corporate events, and we thought there just had to be a different option. So decided to create an event series, which turned into now a digital platform, which again has over 350,000 people. And we've been able to bring in some really incredible mentors that you can actually book one-on-one time with and office hours with some really, really great companies like Credo Beauty, which I know 3 Ships is retailed at. So very exciting, but we've been able to host some really awesome events, and that kind of gave us the idea, like, why don't we just dream a bit bigger? So we actually hosted our largest conference as of last year for 1,000 attendees. That was 2 days. It was crazy. It was the Park Hyatt. I don't think we'll do that again. It was lots of learnings, but I will say that one thing that was really interesting was we just kept on, and I'm like Kyla, I'm very like super excited by different ideas. Like poor East, like if you look at her Instagram DMs, I look like a crazy person that's obsessed with her, which I am. So I'm just like, look at this is so cool, this is amazing. She's like, cool. But I get super excited. And the best thing about, I guess, being bootstrapped, and this is where I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, is again, given the product, given the core what we do, we can play around and we can do crazy things. Like we spent $80,000 just in pure loss on hosting the Summit of Our Dreams in San Francisco, because I come from the tech world. I came from a company, it's called Uber, not sure if anyone's heard of it. It started there around 8-9 years ago. It was very early, and I just remember thinking to myself, every time in San Francisco, I just feel so bad, like there has to be something that needs to be done, and we decided to pull it off, and I think the reactions, the sentiment that we got was just so killer. And because we spent $80,000, we had to do other things. We had to do things for free. So me and East ran around the town, like taping posters that we printed at the hotel, with like different things like sorry you have to deal with tech bros, like different things that just got people's attention, and QR codes. So I think it's a balancing act, right? So it's like for us, we're able to do things like that because investors aren't bringing down our necks. But also because we're really creative and we know that's how we're going to reach our audience through really authentic experiences that are live, but of course digital assets that Isiana does a great job of doing. I'm not sure if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think just like as our business has progressed, like when we started, there really wasn't, we had no references. Like that we were essentially creating a new category. We didn't have a playbook, so we were creating a playbook to begin with. And now so much has changed. There's a lot more competitors on the scenes. And what we did, even last year doesn't work anymore. We have to pivot, we have to adapt, we have to innovate. Even before, like, if you don't adapt or innovate, like, you will become stale, you'll die. So it's also a balance between being really innovative and thinking ahead and constantly being like on the pulse and being like, how can we do things differently? How can we do a new idea? But also balance that with creating a sustainable business, because I will be honest, bootstrapping a business is like the hardest grind you will ever do. Like, you never stop working. Even today, still today, like, we work insane hours. It's just the reality of it. So being able to balance like innovation with also like building strong processes and playbooks and having a really strong foundation. So like growing your team, playbooking everything, and then just being able to like swap things and like reiterate those processes. So it's like constantly balancing the two. And I think that's sort of like the secret in 2025. How do you grow your company, stay fresh, but also like not burn out?
Hyla, I have two questions for you. I think one, and the girls want to chime in too, because all three of you guys come from co-founder mentality. So I'm curious, if you had to go backwards, would you change anything about, and I'm curious what kind of the internal dialogue is. That I come from a place where I was like a single founder, and that's a really lonely road. But it also causes a different level of nuance where I don't know. So I'm curious, like, how do you think about a co-founder? If people are starting businesses, would you consider that lane, the pros and cons? And then if the girls want to chime in, I'm curious.
If I were to go back in time, I would do everything the exact same way I have it. Adrian, I could not do any of this without her. And I just feel like entrepreneurship is so difficult, in my opinion, at times, especially even right now with the tariffs. And just to have someone just be there, and she'll pick me up when I'm down, I'll pick her up when we're down. And we also get to celebrate the wins together. It's so rewarding. On the side, I consult a lot of founders, and I see most success more often than not with clients who have business partners. I find that with my clients who don't, and they're oftentimes in the early stages when they find me, they will be like, yeah, we went through a breakup, and so I didn't work on the business for 4 months. I'm like, okay. Yeah, when you have a business partner, that's not something that can happen, right? So it's someone is going to be there keeping you on track. So yeah, I highly recommend having a business partner. And I think that, I'm not saying if I were to go back in time, we would have had a third co-founder, but I think that in this day and age of the importance of content, it's really important to maybe consider one of the partners being able to be the face of the brand. I think that that's been a struggle at 437 because neither of us really like to be on camera. She hates it. Okay, I don't hate it, but like she dislikes it more than I do. So I'm like, okay, if I have to do this stuff every once in a while on TikTok, that's fine. But I do think it's really important. Sometimes you're like, man, if we had a third co-founder who was a model and she was happy in front of camera and she wanted to do all the speak everything, that would have been a dream. So really strategically finding that person rather than, oh my God, this is a person I love and we're so similar. And it's like you almost want to find your opposite. And one definitely needs to be the more introverted, let me be behind the computer crunching the numbers operator, and the visionary. And likely don't want to have two. We're both visionaries, like likely you're going to both be visionaries, but one of you has to be a little bit more, I'm going to roll my sleeves, get into this Excel and like get this done, versus the other one's like, I'm confident I can go walk into this room, have a presentation or get onto a panel. So really the complementary skill set is most important.
You guys want to chime in?
Yeah, I feel like, hit a lot of the same things. Like I was literally nodding like, yep, because they were opposites. Yep, like we complement each other. So when Laura and I first met, we asked each other what our Myers-Briggs personality types were, and we're complete opposites. So Laura's an INTP, I'm an ESFJ INTP. And that works really well because not only are we complete opposites, we also have completely aligned life values. And I think that's really important for a co-founder because you can balance each other out in your skill sets, but you can trust each other because you know that you're brought up similarly or you have the same values. Something that we did maybe 6 months into when we started working together is the concept of a user guide. You guys know this? Sweet. Okay. So the user guide is like a multi-page document, kind of like how when you buy a new piece of technology, you get a user manual. But for when you meet someone new, especially in a work setting, when you don't really have that context, you might not know how they like to communicate, how they like to give and receive feedback. So, for example, when we first met, I use a lot of exclamation marks, emojis. Laura is the opposite. And so when we would text each other, I'd be like, oh my gosh, she's so mad at me. And then she'd probably like, why is she like obsessed with me? So a user guide will tell you like, I use a lot of emojis. My best energy time in the day is the morning. This is how I like to give and receive feedback. This is my management style. And so we started doing that when we met like 6 months into it, and that really helped. And then now with every new hire, we make them write one, and then they read everyone in the company's user guides. So that is a really helpful thing. Something that we also did, and then I will pass it over to you, is around 3 years ago, we started doing monthly feedback sessions. So every month we have a standing call, and we share like 2 things that we recognize that the other person did really well from the past month. Could be something big, something small. And then that's also our forum to share anything like constructive. That way you're not like holding on to things and it's building resentment, or maybe the other person truly didn't even realize that they did something to upset you or something that was bothering you. And it allows you to have like 12 touch points each year to continue to grow, even though every day you're growing as a founder. So that's been really great. And to answer your question, Blair, I kind of wish we had done that even earlier, because when we first started working together, we were side hustling. So we wouldn't even see each other every day. And so there were some days where like you're just texting each other. So that would have been really helpful.
I'll add just a last couple of things. So when Connie and I first met, we were not friends. I was looking for a co-founder passively. I'd run businesses in the past solo, and I did not like it. I was not a good solo entrepreneur. I felt very alone and isolated. So I'd say when you're considering this, there's no correct way. Like really look inward and look at your past, especially if you went to school. Did you operate better when it was just you working on that project? Or were you like, I'm so much happier when I have someone else up there presenting with me, or when I have someone else writing this report with me? I did way better in group projects than I did in solo projects. I needed that accountability, and I needed people to round me out. And so I was like, okay, I definitely need a co-founder in this. And very early on, I also made a decision which went against a lot of advice I was getting, which was to go 50-50 with Connie. A lot of people were like, this is your idea, you should go 51-49 or like 60-40. I didn't want that. I didn't want an expensive employee. I wanted a true partner, someone that would challenge me, someone that could really own half the business. And so we went 50-50 from equity from day one and invested the same amount of money from day one too. And so that for us, I think was really important for laying the groundwork to have the trust for each other, know that we are really in this together. And that's a mistake that I commonly see people make, is they'll be like, oh, I'll bring on a technical co-founder, but I'm only giving them 15%. And it's like, well, then really they're an employee that you've given 15% of the company to. Like, that is not a true co-founder. So I would also advise towards that side, and then have really clear swim lanes. Like, have a really clear defined, okay, this is the part of the business that you manage, and these are the parts I manage. If we disagree on the direction within a certain area of the business, veto power and default kind of goes to whoever's part of the business that is. They get the ultimate decision. And like, we don't go back and be like, oh, well, you decided. If I had done it my way, like, it's just the default goes with that individual, and have those clear swim lanes. See a lot of founders kind of start to fail when 2 people own marketing and they have different visions of what marketing should look like. It doesn't work.
Chime in, please.
I hope we're not beating the co-founder thing to death, because we're all co-founders here, but the very last thing I'd say is, for ECN, if anyone's heard me in a panel, I've talked about this before, but I would go on TikTok, I'd be watching a video on loud, and it's about like relationship advice, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm anxious attached. And my boyfriend will come and he'll be like, why are you, I'm like, no, this is not for you, this is for ECN. And the reality is that a lot of people don't talk about this, but it really is like a marriage. Like, you talk to this person 24/7. They're in your head, you're in their head. It's crazy. It's like a very strange dynamic, and it's the best thing ever. It truly is. But I would say, like, you have to work on it. Like, it's a marriage, and you have to learn to do love languages, and understand what that looks like. And I'd say it's so funny. Like, me and Sienna did not think we were going to be co-founders. We thought we were going to be like cool, like Facebook group, like co-owners, right? So we didn't realize what we're getting ourselves into, but It's really interesting now looking back. It's like, turns out actually we were opposites, and I noticed that because she was a creative, I came from the tech world. Another thing that I noticed too was the values piece. So when we're talking about the problem, it was very evident that we had similar understandings of what that meant. So for example, when she talked about these events, she's like, they're so ugly. I'm like, yeah, they're so ugly. Like, I really care about the brand. That's really important. And that's something that's still to this day is very part of the DNA. So I think look for those early signals. I wish I was as organized and go for a personality quiz, but we found out pretty organically.
And the one last thing I'll add, I agree with everything that all of you said. The user guide thing is genius. I'm going to steal that. I think by accident, we got the chance to kind of like test working together in a low stakes way. So if you are thinking of finding a co-founder and you don't necessarily have someone in mind yet, and you're like, who should I work with? I think like test projects or concepts that have like low stakes and see how you work together. And like we accidentally got to do that and realized we worked so well together because we had the shared values, believed in the same problem, had complementary skill sets, etc. So that's the way I would probably go about it if I didn't have anyone.
I have one or two more questions, and then I want to open it up if anyone has anything. Millie, I know you had one from beforehand, so we'll ask that too. Hyla, I want to start with you. So for context, in the logistics world, the past, I would call it 15 days, we went to hell and back, basically. So I have a couple of the guys here and the girls, and we have a couple bags under our eyes because tariffs and what Trump imposed in the US and how that impacts shipping. And so, we've had a whirlwind of the past. I feel like I'm in like a toxic relationship. It's an emotional roller coaster, and I'm going through it. And I wanted to hear from you, and then obviously the three ship girls. How are you thinking about this? Because manufacturing costs going up. Now you have to change the import strategy. We're doing your fulfillment, so we're also thinking about that from the US, which is a whole other beast. And you also have to keep retailers happy with pricing and what they want and your e-commerce. Just give me kind of your playbook. How are you thinking about this going into this year? And I just want to level set with your thoughts.
It has been really stressful, and we finally hit this revenue goal, and like a daily revenue goal we've been really wanting to get to. We finally broke it like a month ago. We were getting there. We were feeling really good. We were proud because about a year to 2 years ago, we actually went through a really difficult cash flow time. I speak about it on a podcast episode with Adrian recently, and we were really real and raw about. We took some really bad advice from some bigger consultants, and they were like, "We're gonna get you to like double in size, triple in size." They left us almost bankrupt, and this was a year and a half ago. We literally me and Adrian just got our salaries back about 8 months ago after like getting rid of them for about 8 months as well. It was a really chaotic time. Like literally, my entire life savings I gave to 437, I lent it, and we're gonna start getting paid back that as well too soon. So it was like a bad situation, but on the outside, everyone was like, "You guys are killing it, you guys are killing it." And people were still shopping. It wasn't like sales were dipped at that time. But what was happening was, it's like, imagine you make $1 million salary, but your expenses, your cost of living is $1 million or 1,200 or 1.2. So that's what was kind of going on behind the scenes, because these consultants came in and were like, you need to hire all these executives and do this and do that. They doubled our team size, and we're like, essentially, the software and all that other stuff. It was a nightmare because all of the revenue that they anticipated we were not getting to. But you always have to take accountability to maintain your power, right? Like that's on us, because Adrian and I, this is a little bit of a long story, I'll keep it short, but we were so burnt out at 437 about 2 years ago. We didn't know how to prioritize our relationships and wellness and our mental peace through the ups and downs of having a company. And so we were like, oh, let's, you grow it to one size, and then you hire someone, the CEOs and the whatever advisors, and they'll grow it to the next level. So we had that mindset. We'll just do the fun brand stuff. It's just, we handed our baby just maybe some of the wrong advice, because deep down we were resenting 437. That's the truth, right? Like, you can have a baby, you probably have like a whatever old, like you have a teenager, and you're just like, they're just driving me crazy, But you have to lean into that, and I don't think we did, and I would have changed a lot if we were to go back. But that was one of the biggest blessings that could ever happen, because we from the bottom up, redid everything. So long story short, we finally got back to a really great place. Finally, this goal about a month ago, and then freaking, and then he does this tariff thing where we literally did the calculation. If you were buying a $100 legging in the US, you would have to pay $45 of tariffs just to get that in. Like, who would do that? Like, I wouldn't even do it. I love our stuff. So, for about 3 days right away, we did like a banner on our website that said there's duties and the packages, 1 million packages were stuck at JFK that were not getting into the US because he just put everything in place. Like tomorrow it's in place. Like why, most people in the government say in a year, we're gonna do something, give businesses some time to prepare. So it's been very crazy. Couple things, you have to work with your suppliers. We're in talks right now. Listen, they don't want to go out of business either, right? They're really impacted by this. So there is some leverage. But this was a huge lesson for us because we had all of our eggs in one basket. One supplier who was producing all of 437's activewear. This was a huge lesson for us because we're like, you don't really have a lot of negotiation power when you only have one option. So, hey, we're gonna leave. No, we can't leave. You know what I mean? We need the product to sell. So that's number one, always have backup manufacturers, maybe 2, maybe 3. And then the second thing is, of course, like, as you know, our operations team is probably in talks with you all the time. We're like, do we need a US warehouse? What's going on? What's next? So in these moments, you realize that a successful brand, a strong brand is like not marketing and it's not the front of the business. It truly is the back end. And, I have to be honest, it's my operations team who's really dealing with this. And this is the beauty of having people you trust, because right now we're launching a collaboration next week and that's where my bread and butter is. And so I'm like, this is super awkward. My COO, my operations manager, Adrian, but I got to focus on this so that we can come together and stay really strong. But it's been a nightmare, and luckily things are kind of getting back to normal. And when we send out an email to a lot of the customers and saying, hey, here's the situation, here's 2 options, we can refund your order, or if you'd like to, there's going to be some delays, but here's like a gift card for your next order. I would say like 70% of the women were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear about this. So always remember, you can humanize your brand. It's like, I remember our CEO drafted this email. And I was like, she's an accountant, she's CPA at Queens. And I was like, yeah, I literally put it to ChatGPT and I said, rewrite this with a little bit of a femininity touch. Make it seem like it's their own government's fault, but give them options and tell them that it's out of our hands, but we're empathetic to what they're, it gave us this beautiful response back. We sent that, and again, 70% of people were like, completely understand, I'm so excited, I'll just wait for it. So really be human, let people know what's going on, because you never know. I mean, I don't think people are out here to be taking people out of business. So
Okay, good.
nothing. Is it you guys dealing with this?
Yeah, please.
So I would actually say that we were fairly well prepared for the tariffs. And I think it's because we didn't view it as oh, this will never happen. A lot of founders and business owners I was talking to were like, oh, it's all just bluffing. You don't know. It is within his power control. And the best thing you can do is plan for the worst case scenario always as a founder. And so back in December, when he first started talking about these things and was saying, oh, I'm going to put this in place on day 1, we're like, okay, bet he's going to put it in place on day 1. And so we had already planned to send down 3 months worth of inventory to our US warehouse. We have a warehouse in the States. We have our own warehouse in Canada. So we're like, all right, let's stuff that warehouse. Give us time to plan. We know that our retailers need 90 days notice of any price changes. So that'll give us time to respond to that. We're also going to pre-decide what our price changes are going to be so that we don't have to go through that whole analysis if this does happen and we have to take price increases. So what are we going to change our CAD and USD pricing to? And so when it happened, we were like, okay, cool. This is happening. Let's leverage this. And the outpouring of support from our Canadian audience, which is still the majority of our business as well, which protects us quite a bit, considering that pretty much all of our products, all except for 2, are made in Canada, and 70% of our sales are in Canada as well. We're not as impacted, luckily. And so really leveraging that, we've gotten so many press hits. We've gotten like a huge outpouring of support from our Canadian customers. I think our average daily sales right during the period following the tariffs went up by like 50% because people were looking for Canadian businesses like consistently, and it's stayed at that since then. So I'd say like make lemon out of lemonades. You don't have control as a founder what happens in the world, but you have control how you respond to it, and you have control to be proactive.
Beautiful.
I want to open up to the audience. We're gonna do like 10 minutes, and I want you guys to get selfish, yeah. And then afterwards, I don't want to keep everyone too late, obviously because it's snow and everyone's gonna get their asses kicked from the drive home. But we're gonna do like 10 minutes of Q&A. Get selfish if there's a specific thing you want to take away, and then hopefully the girls can answer some questions afterwards if you guys have anything. Yes, absolutely.
In case you didn't know, I was very excited to ask the question. Hi, my name's Cheryl. I have a personal growth line of affirmation-filled goods called Please Notes. And I actually have a question for the gorgeous Three Ships lady. I have just been on, or how do I say, I'm pitching to Dragon's Den. And of course, watch your episode. I was like, oh my God, I love the girls. And so I was wondering, what was the effect afterwards, like the negotiations that you guys went to, but then the actual impact on your business? Now, for myself, I've raised money. I've never used an investor or had an outside person. Do you feel like it's something that's valuable for every business, or is it certain businesses should and certain businesses shouldn't?
Game changing. Like overnight changed our awareness in Canada. Like the single best.
Okay, no, Mike.
The
Okay.
single best thing that we would have done for like massive awareness in Canada made such a big difference. 80% of deals don't close. So like don't worry about that aspect of it. And craft your own narrative. Connie probably has some advice of how to make the most of your time in the den.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you can always email us after or DM us on Instagram and they'll, or yeah, text, whatever works for you. But I was thinking earlier when you were talking about fundraising, and I was like, I remember what I was going to say. You want to fundraise off of a moment. And so our moment that we fundraised off of was Dragon's Den. So as soon as our episode went live, we raised, and that we closed in 2 weeks because we're like, hey, we're on TV. Like we got
we have another offer. Like,
Yeah.
we don't need yours.
Yeah.
We have this one that we're like nurturing the wings.
Yeah, and like I would highly, highly recommend. I know we were just talking about Dragon's Den earlier before the panel started, and I get a lot of founders asking like, do you recommend it even if I don't need the money? Absolutely, because like the awareness that you get from Dragon's Den is insane, and it pays back. Like we were on all Air Canada flights for a year. So I remember one time one of our team members was sitting on a flight, and like the guy sitting next to her was watching. She's like. And then even now, like we'll still use clips from Dragon's Den in ads. So those ads perform really well for us because it gives you legitimacy.
Yes. Go tell CBC. But, we have to pay for those licenses. Most founders don't. But craft your own story. Remember, it's still television. It's reality TV. They want something dramatic and interesting to happen, or else your like episode is not going to get aired. It's going to be either like never see anything, or it's only going to go up online, which is not what you want. There has to be some sort of like compelling, interesting angle, and if there isn't one, they will create it for you. They will film stuff that didn't actually happen. They will like change answers. They'll even make it look like you didn't get a deal if you did.
They can like refilm that.
They can refilm it, and they can slice like reactions of your face in any way they want. So like have a very positive poker face. Like don't be overly expressive.
Just smile the whole time.
Yeah. Feed them with a story of something really difficult that's happened. Like create that hero's journey for them, so that they don't have to create something interesting themselves.
And then also like make it really clear that you know your numbers from the beginning. Because as soon as they sense weakness, they're gonna go after it. But if you know your numbers, they'll be like, okay, you kind of.
They did not push us on the numbers at all. Like not in the slightest.
And have like prep calls with other founders that have gone on Dragon's Den. So I think we talked to like maybe 8 founders that have been on, and they told us what to prepare for. So for example, like be aware that cameras are gonna just swing out of nowhere if you're right next to you. So we're like, okay, got it. Or like have really oversized props. Like that's something you'll start to notice now when you watch Dragon's Den. A lot of people bring like a huge blow up thing. When their products is small because it shows better on TV. Book, hair, and makeup. Ours got canceled the night before due to COVID. So I remember that night before we were like, let's run to Shoppers and buy all the waterproof makeup we can find. But like, be prepared is what I'm saying.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Question away, though.
Okay, cool. My name is Millie. I'm the founder of Dermatech Skincare. My goal is to provide aesthetic skincare products that are also affordable. I currently work full-time right now at Simply Financial in the tech space as a product owner. And I'm seeing revenue in my business that is more than my actual like day salary, but the profits aren't there. But I'm still considering quitting. So I've kind of talked to Connie and Laura already about it. But specifically Hyla, since you also have a product-based business, how did you decide to transition to run your business full-time for both you and Adrian? And then if anyone has anything to chime on as well.
Well, we started when we were at school, so it was it was a great time to start a business because, free Wi-Fi and the school, and breakout rooms, it was you're already at student housing, right? But what happened was when we decided, let's take this full time, we realized that as all of our, peers are going into living downtown Toronto, getting their condos, working their $70K, corporate jobs downtown, we were instead moving back home into our parents' place and no social life and no salary for about a year and a half into the business while working on it full time. So almost like we weren't getting paid, but we were working on it for free for a year and a half. And I don't think it was until we were making, I think it was about 10 to 15, I don't know, actually we were probably making about $50,000 CAD per month when we started paying ourselves. Obviously, the profit was there because in swimwear, when we started 8 years ago, it was a lot higher margin than activewear now. In my opinion, I always think I would never do something now looking back that would have jeopardized my health and well-being and my peace because I went through very dark times with running 437 and crashing essentially, even though on the outside it didn't look that way. I think you probably might know yourself best in terms of how do you feel safe, how do you feel peace within you, and if you're struggling on the financial end because you don't want to take from the business that right now needs to be reinvested to grow, I think you're going to feel a lot safer maybe leaving at a time where you can pay yourself a salary that right now you have or close enough if you're willing to downsize a little bit, but that you're this is a safe amount for me to still buy if it's organic or not, to still have my gym membership. Maybe instead of going to Equinox, I go to Good Life. You can make small adjustments, but you're not giving up those certain things that make you feel your best. And so if you can pay yourself that and still reinvest as if you are reinvesting to come to a really healthy amount, then I think it's the right time. So I don't know if we will necessarily know that number for you, but I think you'll know it best.
Rachel, I think you guys want to chime in?
I could chime in because I actually have a similar story to you. I actually stayed out of work for probably too long. But I did it for I was there for 8-9 years. And then I only recently, so a year and a half ago, decided to go full-time with Monday Girl. And I think ECN has her own story for this because she was full-time before I was. But needless to say, I knew for myself that financial security and for myself as a founder, that was important. And I made that move at that time, not also realizing that people don't talk about having full-time income as also a way of backing your company. Like a lot of people talk about venture or loans and debt. People don't talk about the fact that having a full-time income is also allowing you to grow the business and put that back into the business. And I think without that would have been impossible. We could not have kept running at Monday Girl, making losses on events, or doing all the sponsorship without us putting in that time that work. So I think don't feel badly if you're doing that. I think there's a lot more narrative and conversation about that now, but I saw that as a way to essentially have an alternative form of resourcing.
Questions? Yes.
Hi. Oh, wow. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the conversation today. My name is Faiza. I'm the founder of Question 4, and I also work full-time at an accelerator called Founders Network. So I find that in my day job, I am very heads down trying to get a lot done. I work in a really small team, and I barely have enough time to work on my company. So I guess my question for you all is more so about how do you balance staying aware with what's going on around you as it relates to your industry, but also getting things done. That is just with your company when you're first starting out, but also doing that while working full time.
Maybe I can when Laura and I first started, when we were side hustling, so we both had other 9 to 5s, we had dedicated days that we'd work on the business. So like Monday nights we knew would be at my apartment, Wednesday nights was at her place, and then we'd work a full day on like a Saturday or Sunday and like usually do a farmer's market and sell there as well, maybe the other day. And so like we're already in the mindset of working on the business versus working your other job. And also when we work our 9 to 5s, there were certain hours that we, at least I think you did as well, but like I would carve out when I was on my cubicle, I'd be like, okay, for this 2-hour period, I'm just gonna go on Instagram and check out all our competition and just like and follow everyone that's following them. And like that was like my hustle time at work because it's very easy work to do in my cubicle. And then in the evenings, we'd work on strategy. Now, what we do, and one of our business coaches have recommended this, is to block off time in your calendar. That's like strategic work because I don't know about you, but sometimes it can still be hard to find time to work on the business and not in the business, especially when you're bootstrapped and in a smaller team. So that has been a game changer to remind us to be like, okay, let's switch my brain and turn it into this other mode. Otherwise, you're not going to be making the biggest impact as you can as a founder, because that's where your mind share should really be going.
I think for the point you made of like how do you pay attention to what's going on in your industry outside your business, if you're very early stage, that's probably not going to be the big unlock for you. I really wouldn't spend too much of your time and energy and mental space paying attention to what's going on outside your business. I would focus on your customers. Like talk to your customers, understand what are their pain points, why did they buy you, why did they not buy, if they browsed, or if they like checked you out and didn't do anything. Spend more of your time there. And then eventually, once you have time to like step back and think of these more strategic things, when the business is like really going and you have a sense of what your customers need, then you can step back and look at the big picture things. Honestly, the only thing that I look at for external news is like Apple News notifications, and I pay for the subscription for Apple News and look at that each morning. And then 1 or 2 other newsletters that I maybe click on a headline like twice a week if it looks interesting. And then having conversations with people in person, of course, makes a huge difference, but I wouldn't focus a ton of your time on external stuff. Focus on like you and your business right now.
Diggy?
Yes, thank you. Hi guys.
Diggy's been waiting to talk.
I have. I want to get your guys' take. So as entrepreneurs, you have 101 things that had to be done yesterday. So how do you manage the burnout when you still have 101 more things to do the very next day?
And keep in mind, Diggy is currently handling 437's cross-border.
Oh yeah. My burnout.
I'm actually burned out.
I can try to do this. I think it's important to also keep in mind, based on not like who answers this question at what stage in their company and all of that, right? I think that when I was starting out, and I'm sure there's founders in here who are just starting, there's established founders in the room. I think it's very important to be mindful of either. But when we're starting out, I didn't have an option to like outsource. I just had the option of like staying organized, having blocks in my calendar. But I did it wrong so many times that we were sleeping in boxes around us and we never left work. And because Adrian and I at the time were living together, even if we were like done our meetings for the day, it was just seeing each other, living together, and the boxes were all around us. We never returned, like we were never offline. I would never do that again now. I think we had to have separate places right from the beginning and not live together in the business. And I think, well, what are other ways that shows up for you? So maybe it's not living together, maybe it's not a business partner, but maybe it's something about work that, you know, whether you find, like there's a million and one organization tools, right? But then the question is, I don't think burnout always comes from the amount of work on your to-do. It's what you're doing after and that transition from work to not work, right? Because how many times do you like finish work at 8 p.m., but then your mind is still racing and then you go to bed and you're not sleeping well and you're on social media and it just didn't actually feel like you relaxed that day at all. So I think for me, I really had to prioritize that during the times that I was able to not outsource, but I think now as well. My 2 things is I've been happy if needed to take a lower salary or anything like that, if that means that I can have more balance in my life. Like this is like me, what I talk about usually not on like super business moments, but if my dream in life, me personally, based on my upbringing, not being with a big family, just my mom and I growing up, my biggest dream in life is to have a big, beautiful family. Lots of kids, a beautiful marriage, love, passion, sex, all the things, right? If leading up to that, my biggest goal is that, but then if you look at my schedule, my life and my mind, it's all work and business. how am I really getting there, especially with the universe, if I want that beautiful marriage, like all of that, right? And so that's number one, is like really being mindful of how you spend your days. And then if you can outsource. Like I've had to hire people to help me on different things. I help people, it's just your team hiring. You have to have an amazing COO. You have to have people that are just so complimentary to you. So yeah, I think at different stages I would answer that question differently, but I think how you wind down from work and your rest and your sleep, and whether you sauna, whether you work out, whether you eat clean, like I think those things help. And I do 2 retreats a year. Like people think I'm crazy with all the self-development stuff I do. I'm like, but you didn't see me 4 years ago when I wasn't doing that stuff, right? And so, very big advocate for the balance.
Laura, how do you avoid burnout?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's compartmentalization. It's very similar to what I was saying, that in those moments after work, because the work is always going to be there. Something that helps me is pausing my inbox, because then I don't just go and like mindlessly refresh it. There's this app called Boomerang. I think you can do it natively in Gmail even now. So pause your inbox, especially when you're on vacation. Like, do not look at it. It's just such a drain, and you don't give yourself time to actually disconnect. I also don't put too much pressure on myself for being perfect or getting everything done in a day. There are some days you're going to be really on. I make the most of those days, and I try to crush through as much as I can. And on the 2 days out of the week that I'm not very on, I honestly give myself grace. And I'm like, you know what? If I wasn't able to focus this afternoon, that's okay. Like, it's okay. Like, there's nothing that's truly going to be do or die in the business. Like, it's me inflicting this pain and stress on myself, and it's nobody else. And so like it's stepping back and being like, nothing is truly on fire. Like, and remind yourself about that, I think is really, really critical, because so much of it is like mentally what you're doing to yourself. It's not as much as like you were saying of like what's actually on your to-do list. It's more about like mentally where you stay stuck for so long.
I think another thing also that is recommended by a coach is just like how there's seasons in life, there's like seasons in your work life.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, for us, it's Q4. It's like actual season. So like Q4, I remember I was actually talking to my therapist about this 2 years ago, and then she reminded me again that we had talked about this last year when I made the same mistake. And I was like, it's October, I have like no time for myself, and I'm trying to block off massages here and like going for a think weekend here and like blah, blah, blah. And she's like, Connie, we talked about this last year. Like, when you're in the Q4 season, don't try to force self-care in that time, because you're just gonna stress yourself out. So it's like you go into the season knowing that it's gonna be a harder one, but then it also means in the summer maybe, or like whenever it is for you, it's a little more chill. And so as long as you don't consistently work that level the whole year, usually that helps with burnout. A tool that you can also use is the Wheel of Life, if you've heard about it. So you can download it for free from Google. There's a bunch of them, but they're just like a circle, and there's a bunch of different quadrants, and it's like personal, like work, health, community, financial, and you can color in like from 0 to 10 how fulfilled you feel in each area. And then you can see on the wheel, like visually, oh my gosh, like health is at 3, but then like work is like 10. So yeah, sure, work's fulfilling you, but like, are you going to be around to enjoy it? So that's something that was really impactful.
Yeah, the other thing that I do is there's a thing called misogi. Have you guys ever heard of it before? So it's a Japanese saying, and it's basically these like life-changing moments that you want to focus on. And what I try to do is every year I have a misogi, and it's a theme for the year. It's like, it's something big that's going to change, whether it's your life, it could be something small or big. So I have a misogi every year. So this year it's a marathon. And a lot of the theme of your lifestyle and what you do, you have, regardless of all the shit that's going on, it's like you have your misogi. And the other thing I do is that with me, the missus, we'll do mini adventures. So we have 4 mini adventures a year. And my thought process is that like outside of all the work that has to get done, it's like I'll do 4 mini adventures. You know, I'm 20 something now. By the time I'm 60, 4 a year, you know, I might have like 100+ mini, and the mini adventure could be small. It could be, you know, we do something uncomfortable that we wouldn't have done. We went for the hike, we went skiing, something that I just probably wouldn't do in the day because I get so caught up with work. And it's my mentality, like, how do I live a better life just that lives outside of this work realm? Or else sometimes I think even last year I blinked and the whole year when you're like, what the fuck just happened, basically. So anyway, now I have a misogi every year, which is my theme and aura, and then I have a mandatory 4 mini adventures throughout the year that I have. So that's how I'm trying to keep my sanity.
Good to know.
We'll do one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. I want to make sure that we have a selfie photo afterwards and a couple shout outs. Yes, please.
Hi guys, thank you. My name's Menchi, and I'm actually building a healthy snack brand. I brought some protein bars I made. By the entrance, feel free.
Tell us about what Benchi is. What's the?
The brand is called Munchwell. Munch. Yeah. So I've been working on it full time. It was a blessing in disguise because I got laid off last year, and I got to try something I never done before. I was working obviously actually corporate. Didn't want to go back, starting it now. It's been 3 months. I think the next step for me is pushing it to, I guess, retails, healthy grocery stores, if you would. But I do feel like there's an internal block there saying like, I'm not ready, and I think I'm trying to delay it as much as possible by doing other things and giving myself excuse, be like, oh, I need to show these numbers to the retail when I approach them, and I don't have those numbers yet, so I'm not doing the retail yet. And I'm aware of this self-talk. I know some of you have this experience of like breaking into retailers, and hoping to hear some thoughts on how to think this more rationally. I don't want to making this emotional decision of delaying it, but also wanted to be more confident, and things I should know, going to retail and push it to the next step.
I think I have something to jump in with really quickly. So I think when I've looked at things where I'm like, okay, I'm not ready yet, I need X, Y, Z, it's usually coming from a place of fear of rejection. So maybe look inward and determine, are these reasons that you're giving yourself that you're not ready? Are you just scared of the rejection that you might be opening yourself up to, which is very scary and uncomfortable, but it's going to be a necessary part of being a founder. And it doesn't get easier. All that you can do is rip off the Band-Aid and be like, you know what? I only need one yes. I just need one yes. Like, it doesn't matter if I get 99 no's before that first yes. I just need the first one. And just, you're never going to feel exactly ready. And so try not to be scared of that fear of rejection. And also, once you do get that one yes, it's so worth it. And you kind of forget about all the no's, honestly. Like, it really only takes one person.
Sure. And on that note, also, there's a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I see a lot of headlines. Okay, so not favorite book, yeah, that I always talk about, but it's really great for those who haven't read it. Highly recommend. It's written by a former FBI hostage negotiator. And one of the things that he says in the book is when you're negotiating with someone, what do you want? A lot of people say, like, I want a yes. And what he says, do you actually want a no? Because then, like, that's a more honest answer for you versus someone who says yes and they don't actually want you and then they'll, like, push you off later. The no gets you closer to the yes because then you can be like, okay, well, why? And so I think when it comes to approaching retailers, like, know that when you get a no from a retailer, you're going to slowly, like, tweak almost like you're an algorithm where you're like, okay, well, they said line sheet. I don't know what that is. I mean, I'm going to go back and figure out next time I'm going to go and be like, instead of saying price list, I'm going to say line sheet because that's their language. And then next time, like, okay, they say, they're like, oh, you're really similar to our assortment that's in store. You're like, yeah, that's great because I'm similar to them. And then you learn that's not a good thing to say because it means that you're going to cannibalize sales of those other brands that are doing well in their store. So like each time you get a no, you're like figuring out how to tweak your pitch. I'd also say with grocery in particular, a lot of brands that get into grocery actually just start off by going into one. Like we know a lot of founders that are in the food business and you just go in store and like you can, it depends on the grocery store, but a lot of the ones that are self-run, they'll let you just like put up a little table just like you've done here and set up and demo. And when I got into the detox market, that's what I did. I told the buyer, even though they're not a grocery store, I told the buyer, let me show you that I can sell because she's like, I don't have space for you. We accept less than 2% of the brands that apply. And so I just set up a table for the day at this Spadina location, stood there all day, and they were like, we've never seen sales like this, you're in. So it's like, if you don't try, you'll never know. But I think a lot of it does come down to the mindset over like the actual retail. Yeah.
What if it were me in your shoes, something that I would do would be to do two things. Because what you said, you're like, I'm not sure if I'm ready. sometimes brands aren't ready. Like one of the biggest advice I always give my clients is we have to be humble as founders. I think oftentimes we're like, oh, my packaging is perfect, my brand is perfect. And there were so many times throughout our journey where we took a look at our brand and we're like, this is not it. So I think there's a mix of like humility, but also there could be a fear of rejection. There could be something else there. So I would say, the second thing I would do is to maybe to speak to someone who's doing really well in the food and beverage space that broke in through like a similar path, like they pitched. Although I do think that you can go to a million places and get rejected, then you get into one. I'm also like, why not prepare yourself to go in with the best foot forward at one of them? Because the amount of times when we went to Revolve, and I did not know the terminology, and I made myself look like an idiot, and I didn't know anything about wholesale, and I look back at the email now, and I was like, if only I could have just went on like Mentor Pass or like Monday Girl, or just anywhere that, whether you can network or you just have to pay to speak to someone for like 1 hour on a random website to just pick their brain. The difference is that oftentimes when we ask our friends, or you might just ask someone here, hey, what do you think about my brand? They'll likely say the nicest thing of their truth, versus like when you hire someone, even if it's for 1 hour and it's $500, it's like, I'm not gonna lie as a consultant, and someone else is like, hopefully they're not. So maybe they say, listen, this packaging is not strong enough for Whole Foods. This is what I would do now that I'm 10 years into my brand. So yeah, I think just a little bit of advisory can always help, and but I think that it's the mixture of the confidence with the humility as well.
But don't go for the Whole Foods from day one. Like, learn with these smaller mom and pops. Like, there's nothing stopping you from going into a big carrot and being like, hey, I have my stuff. Like, you want to try it? We're made in Canada. Like, that's a big thing right now. Take advantage of it. It really, really is a big decision maker for people. And do what Connie said of just setting up a booth and be like, I just want to show you how much people love this product. I promise once your customers try it, they're going to fall in love. And it's a great price point. It's 40 cents cheaper than some of the comparisons that you have on shelf. Like, it hits these different macros for people. Whatever your selling points are in your space, just find that one local retailer that will take a shot at you. Maybe break down your goal into something smaller. Like, this week I'm going to go into one retailer and tell them about my product, instead of being like, this month I need to land the retailer account.
Also listen to How I Built This. There's a lot of really good previewed episodes on How I Built This, the podcast. So when we first started making our products in our kitchen, we just like play episodes in the background. And I think you'll hear from some of these food and beverage founders how they did it, because a lot of them literally just like walked into a store, and it'll give you confidence, I think.
Is there a podcast you guys like? I listen to Hylas. Just not like it. It's not weird. Like my wife listens to it too. It's not just me that listens to it. Is there any other podcasts you guys suggest, or anything else you listen to?
How I Built This is amazing for early stage. My favorite podcast right now is Acquired. It tells like the long story, like kind of like 4-hour long histories of corporations, and I think there's a lot you can learn from that.
Anything else?
I binged the Sequoia ones. I don't really know what it's called, but it's by ABC with Sequoia, and they actually produce it really well. It's good.
Mine's My First Million by Sam
Cool, yeah. And Heather, what's the name of your podcast?
Oh, mine's called Heart to Heart, but it's just a passion project. It's not like a
Yeah.
we just try to have like real conversation.
It's great. No, I love it.
About mixing, like, how do you stay this entrepreneurial woman who really appreciates success and her passions, but then still want to be feminine, and you still want to have this thriving relationship, you still want to feel at peace, and that your whole life doesn't revolve around your work. So like, that's just my passion right now, to bring topics like that to
Yeah, cool. Steve was right beside me, so he was going to bribe you. So one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up again.
Thanks so much. So first of all, I'm super inspired. Yeah, we'll get to that. So I'm feeling a little emotional because I've been 20-year founder game. I've been at the top of the mountain. I've fallen off the other side. I've been every rock on the way down. I know what that feels like. And if you can't tell, I'm straight white male. So I have been adjacent to the struggles, watching the women in my life go through. And I remember my mom came to me, I think I was 18 or 19 at the time. And it's just an offhand conversation. She was talking about how she went to her boss for a raise. And his response was to reference how successful my dad was doing, right? Which had nothing to do with anything, right? And I was ready to roll up on that guy's house as an 18-year-old. My dad didn't think that was a good idea, so I didn't do that. And then see my wife go through her career development. She actually worked with Sam for 2.5 years at Disco. So seeing her, struggle not only with male leadership, but also female leadership, right? Which I was shocked to see. So, as a man, what, I guess, can we do better to help support you? Because this is what we need, right, as a society and as we move forward, especially in our current situation. Is there any advice you could give to us to show up better for you?
I need to ask the same question, so please, ladies.
I mean, I think what you're doing is showing so much emotion and passion for this topic is the first thing. Like, I truthfully haven't seen that in anyone at any session before. So if more men can be like you in that type of way, then the world would already be a much more understanding place towards what a lot of women go through in business. So keep doing that and keep asking the questions. And then I would say, like, offer mentorship and help. The number of times that we've had male co-founder friends, and it's nothing against them, but they have such a leg up because people that they go to, they're like, oh, you remind me of me and my brother when we were first getting started. I know people that they had $0 in revenue, got a $500 check, $500,000 check, because they reminded them of him and his brother. And so I think the more that you can do that of trying to, like, help out the women that are up and coming as much as you can, because for some reason I find that the most competitive, catty people that I run into that should be helping us are women. And it's so frustrating, but it's such a thing. And so I hope that, like, our next generation is not like that, because I'm sure that we've all experienced it. And typically for me, the most generous mentors and best mentors have all been men.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the best thing you can do, because we're truly not getting that much help from women. We really aren't.
I think it's like also because for a lot of women, they're like, well, I went through all this crap to get to where I am.
Yeah,
So
it's totally
like,
it's
very
you do
generational.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like the Nick, or not the Nick's founder, the Spanx founder. I was talking to someone in the States, and she's like, I went up to Sarah Blakely, and, like, I was part of this mentorship group with her. And I was telling her that I was trying to raise like $100,000. She flat out told me, I did it with 5. You can do it with 5. I'm not giving you $100,000. And it's just like, that's not the right attitude to have, and we don't experience that from male counterparts. So I think help, because oftentimes they're not getting it from women.
And I think also just like being open-minded with the women that are, like, let's just say you're talking to a founder that's a woman, even if you don't really fully understand the product, like trying to understand it. Something that we experience and Laura and I would often talk about during fundraising is a lot of the cash comes from men. And so we'd be talking to these male investors and they'd be like, okay, I'll just like give it to my wife to try. And we're like, well, you have skin too. Like, you can try it. And like the best investors and the best mentors are the ones that are like, I want to try your product. Like, what's your best seller? So just like having curiosity and like truly listening, I think is one of the best ways that can support women. Yeah.
Mine might be a little bit more like relationship polarity, but I think that a lot of, I'll only speak for the women that I have spoken to a lot of my DMs and communities and my clients, but I have noticed that many of us, there is a sense of, not ashamed, but there is a sense of resistance even towards our own selves of being entrepreneurs, because we know it's inherently, we have to put our more masculine hat on. Not that we're not, like, we don't love what we do, but it is oftentimes we fall into this trap of going on social media. We see the woman who's not working, who's not stressed out, and to be so soft and to not have to, I think even just the awareness of men knowing that if you're someone who is dating an entrepreneur, just knowing that, maybe even asking the deeper questions of why is she a founder? Was there something, not all founders are like this, but I can speak for myself. There was a need for me to feel some sort of validation because of something, whether it was through childhood or whatever, that I was like, this is how my dream husband is going to find me worthy, which done a lot of therapy to realize that my business was not going to be that. But oftentimes there's something that, we're trying to prove, and later on in a journey we realize that it is not that. But I think having a partner to continuously remind us that they love us outside of this, they're not here with us for this,
and being just super honest and vulnerable about when she is stepping into the leadership role in the relationship, if you are a more predominantly masculine partner that wants to lead. I think instead of building resentment and not talking about it or pulling back or not, being attracted or whatever it is, I think just having really honest conversations, whether in therapy or like heart-to-heart conversations at home, where couples can kind of talk about that, because I think that I've been in the situation where I think that I had stepped a little bit more into a little bit of that burnt out was coming into the relationship, and it wasn't vocalized on how it was impacting the partner at the time, and that turned into its own host of issues. So I would just say just having an honest conversation, because truly, like as founders, we are, you're not getting to go home and leave your work at work. So it is something that we have to be mindful of in relationships. And I think, Steve, it's really, really great of you to even be asking these questions. Yeah, that's really, really powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we echo the same sentiment, just like, thank you so much for showing up and being vulnerable. I think so often, I've seen this all the time. We work with a lot of, everyone knows what an ERG is, right? Like an employee resource. Okay, so a lot of companies have what they call employee resource groups where, for example, at Uber, we had a woman at Uber. And I remember staffing this up. We're like, we're gonna do this, it's gonna be amazing, bring it to Canada. I think there was 30 women that joined, and then there was this one guy, just one dude that showed up. He was there, and he was like, all right, like, I thought there was gonna be more people, I thought there was gonna be more support for this, because everyone's so excited. And I think the reality is that, just him being there and sitting down and listening, and just being like, how can I advocate for this? For like, whether it's financing, if you want to do this event, how do we do this? Whether it's just getting more visibility on these kind of projects, like all these little things add up and they really, really matter. And I think it really comes down even more, not just like the projects that you do or these small little things, it's simply just acknowledging those people that don't look like you in the room. I think so often we all remember this, like whether it's at a boardroom, whether it's a meeting, whether you're pitching, whatever it is, just feeling slightly at a disadvantage because you didn't feel like or talk like them. And I think just recognizing that and holding space for it in your way, just opening up, like that alone just wonders. So thank you again.
Yeah, last thing also, because I think the stats are like less than 20% of C-suite leaders are women, drops to 7% for women of color, and like less than 2% of female businesses are funded. So like when we walk into rooms and we know we're the minority, we kind of have to like show up in a way that's unnatural to us because we feel like we have to like speak a certain way or like just become someone else to like compete and also just like take up space. So I think just like if you're in those rooms, like how can you make sure that the women feel heard and like safe to actually like just show up as themselves authentically, because we bring different skill sets and different types of things to the table. And so like for me to put on like a certain voice to be taken seriously is like, not the best thing. So that's what I would say.
Love it. Yeah, we made a decision like we are a 70% female-led company. So majority of our operations is female-led. So I think sometimes it's just about like shut up and show, right? Like, I think action sometimes can speak louder than words, and we can do all the hoorahs, but I think sometimes just there's a lot of power in seeing that like even this entire event was fully ran by all the girls on my team could just put their hands up. Like, bravo, it's all female-led, they're all badasses. So, and I couldn't do it. There's no way in hell I could play this. So, anyway, so I just want to do a couple really quick shout outs. We all got these badass gift bags, and it was like the first 50 or so that ended up showing up. Almost a blessing that the snowstorm happened to some extent because everyone ended up getting goodie bags here. Stravic Skincare, thank you. A&S Performance 3 Ships, of course, thank you guys. Menchie's, food's in there. Balloons, the drink that you guys will be seeing there. Birch Babe. There's also Salty Face. I don't know if you guys have seen Salty Face, so they're amazing. So we fulfill it, and we're like, hey, can you guys send us like every single person, it's like a full size Salty Face, which is amazing. Their ads on TikTok is amazing. And then we also have Muscle Mac. It's like a protein KD and so forth as well. So I want to say thank you, Tashuka, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, for introducing the ladies at Monday Girls. Thank you guys. I'm so glad that you guys were able to get connected here. And Perpetua for letting us use the space. You guys are an absolute godsend. We have a warehouse it's not the prettiest place to do, events like this in. So I'm very grateful for it. And we also have Loop. Loop is their banking, and they do cross-border banking, all for Canadian small businesses. Like all of our brands in Canada, for the most part, are utilizing Loop, and they've been an incredible sponsor for this event and previous events. So I want to thank them. Is someone from the Loop team here too? Thank you so much. Anything financials, or if you're setting up a bank, like even the cross-border, obviously with everything happening now, that the U.S. currency exchange, all of our brands are utilizing Loop for it. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. And last thing I want to do before you guys head out, I want to do a quick selfie for you guys. This is like the renowned thing that we do for like all the events, and every single one, it just blows up in my little LinkedIn ether that we live in. But I want to say thank you guys. I want to thank you to the brands that did the goodie bags, and also the girls. Thank you guys for doing this and supporting the vision. Hopefully we can do more. I think the thing with the female founders is that I was tossing up this idea of like, why the fuck are we calling it female founder? Like this is just what every single event we've ever done. We've always had usually one really strong thought leader that was female led. We had Bloom, Karen from Bloom. We had Susie from she runs a chocolate brand, and I saw every single time all the questions were addressed to her. Right? Like it was always the girls, and all the girls that came up were like, you need more girls on this. And I was like, fuck the men, right? Like we've heard the guys over and over again. So I'm really hoping this kind of sets the stage of like, this is what I think the future looks like. And my bets are on the girls in this room. So thank you guys for coming to today. Selfie, yes? Let's do a quick photo if someone can come up. Oh, there's Balloon and Menchie's products here too. So if you guys want, before you guys leave, please take some. We also have some drinks. The beer's kind of warm. We didn't plan it well, unfortunately. But we do have a bunch of drinks, and it was on my credit card, so please take those as well. And make sure before you guys leave, talk to one or two more people. Like we have this where everyone signed up on Partiful. I think one of the key things about this is like you want to build your community, whether it's for investing, or relationships, or building a community, like with Monday Girl or Hyla from a consulting, these amazing brands that are talking to her and leaning on her for advice. Is try to get a couple of connections from this. And in the Partiful, do you log into Partiful, or is it a text? How does it work? Drop your LinkedIn. I just use LinkedIn because that's me, but maybe drop your Instagram too. But we had 300 people sign up for this event. So drop your LinkedIn, like build that community, build that relationship. These things go a really long way. And you don't know who else is in this room. It could be an investor, it could be your next co-founder, it could be the reason that you end up jumping out of your business and starting it full time, right? So anyway, that's my rant for today. If everyone can come into the front, we're gonna do a quick selfie, and then I'll let you guys get home safe. Thank you guys. Okay. Guys, if you want to all come right to the front here, we're going to get a camera over here. So we need everyone to somehow get around the front section here so we can get everyone there. Don't be shy. Come on this side. I don't know. If we get a chair, if we get a chair, we can end up standing on that. So we can do it downward too. Everyone in the back, come on in, please. Don't be shy. We'll make this look amazing. So maybe we can get the camera right here. Okay. Simon, can you use the iPhone camera too? Oh, can you over here? I'm an adult now. No, just use the regular. Yeah.
Simon, make sure you get me.
You guys say something on 3. What do we say on 3? Okay, ready? On 3, we'll say Toronto. Ready? 1, 2, 3, Toronto! Woo!
One more, please, there.
Okay, one more. Ready?
One more, ready? We're gonna jump.
3, 2, 1, Toronto!
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much. Stay around for 10, 15 minutes. You want to meet the girls before they head out. Thank you.
By the way, hi, we met on the other. Yes, we stopped beside each other. Yes, hi. Well, your name is Nicole. I didn't know I was gonna like start on time. We'll have to catch it on LinkedIn, right? Yeah. See you on there. Yeah. Are you heading out? Oh my God, stay safe and then freaking like what? No, that it was gonna be I'm gonna like I'll see you around, okay? Thank you. We'll see how the content comes. And then we'll decide whether it's, yeah, and then we'll decide whether it's like, oh, but this one is a good one. It's a small, intimate one. I think this is what
Thank you guys for coming. Everyone's just wrapping it up as we speak. So I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for coming to the show.